All right, everyone. My name is Pascal Borel, and I'm talking to you from the Swiss mountains. I'm on a small summit. It's not so high, 2,400 or just above. And you can see Central Vallis just behind me with a few summits in the background, among which the Ville d'Orne, which is the highest summit of Central Vallis. Today, I'm going to talk to you about freedom of speech, freedom of expression. For a large number of people, freedom of expression is a constitutional right, a social right, or a social or legal concept. But you have to understand that it is not at all a legal concept. It is not at all a constitutional concept or right. No. Freedom of expression was born around communication, in the sense that communication on Earth is the main trigger, the main driver of all major evolution giant leaps that we went through, from monocellular to multicellular life, and then within the communities that we formed. And communication has always been the driver of the success of any species, insects, humans, everyone. But the Homo sapiens sapiens, your species, has taken the concept much further, in the sense that we adapted physiologically and from a neurophysiological point of view, your brain, to welcoming language based on words which you interiorize, and you associate very specific concepts to different words that you store in your brain. And that creates an abstract reality of the world and the environment you live in the sense that your five senses are giving you information about your environment, but you reconstruct it in your brain all the time based on the symbolic of the words that you store into your long-term memory, and that you reach in order to bring it into your working memory in big convergence centers like the prefrontal lobe or the hippocampus, which are centers of convergence within your brain. It was a major risk for Homo sapiens sapiens, your species, to start using language, because as just an example, a physical risk was the fact that we had to lower in the throat the separation between esophagus and trachea towards the lungs and esophagus towards the stomach. And that is a major risk, because as a young baby, if you broncho-aspire your mother's milk charged with chlorhydric acid, from the stomach, you're going to burn your lungs alveoli, leading for a sure death. And this is still a common cause of the very young baby's death nowadays. But we took the risk in order to enlarge the vocal cords, to create vowels like A, I, E, U, O, which are the basic of the language, on the phonemes on which the language is being structured. So we took this risk, and if it hadn't worked, other humanoid species like Neanderthal or Denisovian would have dominate us. But it happened that communication is always the main driver of the success of evolution of life. And this is why it was so successful with us when we adopted the ultimate weapon, communication through language. And also, this communication through language allows you to abstract the reality in your mind, as I've just said. You use the symbols that you associate with words to recreate the world, literally, and your truth, your perception of it, in a unique fashion in your brain only. And this is why in very similar environment, many human beings have a different, I would say, not only approach, but a different way to understand the world in which they are. And the beauty of this is that it allows you to detach from the reality and literally to filter it through the linguistic system. And this is so important because it allows you to bring finality into your life, as in define what you will do, define the person you choose to be, define, what are the steps, your successive steps that you will take in order to reach your goal, your purpose, what you want to do in life. And it's what allows you to do mathematics, for instance, or to create music, to build a cathedral. It creates art. It creates, everything that we cherish so much as a human being. It also creates another thing, which is the culture environment in which you live, which has taken its complete independence from the biological support, your brain, on which it is built. Because you create this abstract reality, and this is how you conceive the world, literally. This abstraction makes you enter into a very brand new universe, because biology alone will maintain you alive for millions of years to come. On the other hand, the cultural environment that you build entirely based on the linguistic system can justify your autodestruction. In the sense that, nuclear weapons or biological weapons or whichever might be the cause of a dying humanity. But in fact, it will not be the root cause, because you need someone, a weapon is only deadly if someone pressed the trigger. And it is the cultural environment that will probably help people, crazy people, probably, you may name them that way, to actually press the red button and justify themselves behind the cultural concept that we have entirely built, that doesn't exist in modern nature, doesn't have any biological justification, but it is a phenomenon that, as I said, has taken its independence. It's an emerging phenomenon. So, voila, back to freedom of speech, freedom of expression. You got to understand that when you were born, your brain was empty. It was pre-cabled, if you wish, to welcome language, to welcome the education of your parents. But took you probably a year to just barely stand up. Took you 5 years to run with utmost inefficiency. When a gazelle or a horse is able to walk within an hour and to run within 3-4 hours. The beauty is the horse or the gazelle is pre-cabled to do whatever his life is going to be, or 90%. He will acquire experience and so forth, but it's literally a genetic memory which is ingrained into his brain. Us human beings, we are totally empty. We are pre-wired again, pre-cabled, if you wish, from a neurophysiological point of view, but we are empty. And therefore we feed, our benevolent parents are feeding us with the language system, with our social environment. And the beauty of that is that it is recreated one generation after the other. And that's a beauty, because it allows us to adapt constantly from one generation to the next, acquire new knowledge, transmit it to our children and so forth. But if you impeach your children to acquire knowledge, you are damaging them physiologically, because it is a biological necessity for you to speak, because it is through the language system that you will create the world or recreate the world in which you live. So you harm your children when you impose the politically correct, when you impose any given obligatory way of thinking. What I'm trying to say is that if you can think about it, you should have the right to say it, if you so wish. But impeaching you or stopping you from being able totally freely to disclose whatever you want to disclose, to share your ideas the way they emerge into your brain, disqualifies you from evolving our culture, evolving what we are deep down. And this is why the founding fathers of our constitutions, in their great wisdom, let's face it, gave us as a First Amendment quite often freedom of speech, because they would understand that this is completely essential to the evolution of our civilization, of our culture, of whom we are. And if you restrict this, if the legal framework stops you from being able to, because of, to disclose your story to your son, to your community, to your daughter, to your wife, your husband, it becomes your enemy, because it kills the main driver of the evolution of our species. So this is why a legal framework that stops you from expressing the way you feel things, or using the legal framework because it's considered defamation or insults and what have you, makes our culture and the whole species weak. And this is why it should be, it's a biological need, once more. I don't know how to express it better. And I want this video to be quite short, so I'm not going to go into greater detail. All I can tell you is that any government, any legal or constitutional framework, or any governance system that stops you from being able to express, you should be able to say, if I can think about it, I have the right to say it. And actually, no, you don't have the right to say it. You have a duty to say it, to share it with your community. So other people may evolve along your ideas. You will get the ideas of others, and you will give your ideas to others. And that is the only driver of the evolution of our civilization and of our species. It is of so much and utmost importance. I can't stress it enough, my dear. So, thank you very much for your kind and benevolent attention. Peace out.